Hi, good afternoon. This is Sarah Isabella, and welcome to the 2017 Online Tiny House Summit. Today we have Pat Dunham, the Tiny House Advisor, and she'll be talking about how to live well in a tiny space. Take it away, Pat.
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with all of you. And as you heard, I'm Pat Dunham, Tiny House Advisor, and I help people live well in whatever size space they choose. And today I thought I'd tell you how I got started living tiny. I'm coming to you today from my own tiny house. My husband and our 35-pound dog live in a 236 square foot space. We have no loft. As you can see over my left shoulder is our bed. And it's kind of funny because we're living on a double bed like we had when we first got married in 1960, 57 years ago. And we're very comfortable not having a loft. And we just love it here. We've been here almost 2 years and we just love living in our tiny space. But how did we get here? Years ago, we used to go boating, and this is my story. We'd go boating every single weekend over to Long Island Sound from our marina in Connecticut, and we'd leave on Friday afternoon and come back late on Sunday. We were self-employed, so we were able to make our own hours, and away we'd go with all of our children on board and our dog, and we'd go to a place called Shelter Island that was there. We could only get there by boat. I don't know if that's changed over the years, and after a while, we'd also hit some of the other ports in Long Island. We'd go there, rain or shine, no matter what. And we started to realize how nice it was spending our time on the boat and not in our very large house. We had a 5-bedroom house, 72 feet long, 2 stories, and wherever the children were at one end of the house, and we'd hear, children arguing or something, and I'd be at the other end, and I'd be yelling across the house, "You kids quit it." And we started to realize that being on the boat, we were so much closer. It rained very often on those weekends, so we'd be playing games and cards and things like that because it didn't matter. We were together, and we really realized how close we were becoming. So we decided that why don't we just live aboard all the time, because we love boating so much. My husband found a lovely 55-foot tri-cabin. Now that sounds like a very large boat, and it was, but it's a little bit like living in a single wide 40-foot trailer because boats are shaped narrow. They're not square, giving you all that extra space. This boat was an old wood yacht built for a well-known business owner, the man who owned Bloomingdale's stores in New York. And we loved it. It had great storage, and we sold everything, moved out of our very large home, which was an enormous undertaking in itself. At that time, we had 5 children, and I was expecting number 6. And here we were moving aboard a boat. When we got to Florida, we had intended to go cruising and just put the children in homeschooling and cruise the Bahamas. Well, it ended up that the company we were with, that we had left up in Connecticut, we were able to pick up on another distributor in Florida, but at the same time, the company that I had sold in Connecticut, a wedding planning service, had defaulted on the loan, and there went our cruising kitty. So we really at that time never did get to go cruising because it's very expensive to take a large boat and pay for fuel. So we still enjoyed our time living together on the boat. And to this day, the children refer to our boating lifestyle is thanks for the memories, Mom and Dad. They loved it. The St. Petersburg Times, now known as the Tampa Bay Times, wrote an article about us. This is kind of a funny story because they referred to the article as 6 kids aboard a boat could create bedlam in solitude. Now, the reason it had such an unusual name of the article was that the name of the boat was Solitude. And that is pretty remarkable when you consider that there's 6 children on a boat, and everyone kind of, their eyes light up when I tell them we lived on a boat with 6 children. They can't even imagine. And the tradition in the boating world is to keep the name on a boat. So we always kept the name, and it, like I said, it created a lot of laughter when they'd see all these kids piling off of the boat. Along the way, the company we were working with went out of business, and we lost all of our escrow money. So there we were, jobless, penniless, nothing to fall back on. And so because we had a pretty large mortgage on the boat and dock fees were very high, we had to sell our boat. And that wasn't a fun time for us, but we did end up selling the boat. And here we were thinking, my gosh, where are we going to live? Who in the world would rent to a family with 6 children, no job, no references, and a little dog? So we were just so lucky. We found this darling little town, seaside town in Gulfport, Florida. It's on the outskirts of St. Petersburg. And we found a small wooden cottage. And the man was interested in owner financing, and he accepted a small down payment, and we moved into this small house with our 6 children and our little dog. And we borrowed someone's truck, and we ran around looking for furniture, because when you live on a boat, the boat has all built-in furniture. So we had nothing. We found a table with 1 chair and a few beds. And a little bit after that, we finally found more chairs for the kitchen table. And I used the ideas from the boat to build beds into the small bedrooms. The bedrooms in this place were only like 9 by 9. And so using used dressers and pieces of foam, I was able to make built-in beds in the bedrooms and make this very small cottage into a very livable space for our large family. And of course, I got hooked on yard sales at the same time. After a while, living, we ended up with different housing and so forth, but we started to look back at our dream of cruising the Bahamas and that sort of thing. And my husband decided that he would build a sailboat for us, because the cost up front of buying one ready to go was just too much for us. So he's a very brilliant guy, and I have to say, I've been married to him, like I said, for 56 years, going on 57 in a few months. He built this boat, a 46-foot sailboat from a bare hull. Now, I got to tell you, that is harder to do than building any house. I mean, you got to figure there are what they call compound curves, curves going this way and curves going that way. So it's not like building a house or a tiny house that's like a square or a box. Everything's up and down or sideways, but not like a boat. It's a huge, huge undertaking. And what we did was we got no plans with this boat. So we'd go to boat shows, and I might tell you that that is one of the best places to go for ideas. Boats from day one, from the start of history, have been known for their fabulous storage solutions and the way they have places in every little nook and cranny. We'd go to the boat shows with our measuring tape and our notebook, and we would sit on settees to see how high they were and measure the depth of the cushions to see how comfortable. And we figured out, just looking at the various floor plans of the boat, how we would plan our boat. We would sit in the middle of this empty cavern, because like I said, we got a bare hull. All we had was what they call a sole, which is the floor of a boat, and the sides inside, which are the bulkheads. And that was it. No portholes, no nothing. And we'd sit there, the two of us, on 5-gallon buckets, looking around, trying to figure out where we would put everything. We finally finished our boat, and we did get to do some fabulous cruising. We'd go all the way through the Bahamas, all the way down through the Exumas, which is the end of the Bahama chain. We got to visit the island nation of Cuba, which was fabulous. Would love to go back again. And we also just did so much on the boat. It was just wonderful. We loved living aboard. Then we ended up having to care for our elderly parents. First, my parents, my father got Alzheimer's, then my mother, and then my husband's father. His mother had passed away a few years ago. So that really stopped our cruising that we were able to do. And along with this situation, my husband ended up with all the stress of caring for elderly parents and seeing them deteriorate. It was very hard on him. And he ended up with depression, and we ended up finally selling our beloved, big, beautiful sailboat. And that was not a good time. So from there, we went from different size houses and so forth. And now, back again, full circle, we are in our own tiny house. And we, like I said in the very beginning, we absolutely love it. Now, we still have our 6 children, and one of them thinks we're broke. Everybody cracks up about this because he just don't get it. He just don't understand how we could enjoy living in our tiny space. And he keeps saying, "Don't kid me, you're broke. You're living in a shoebox." And he, no matter what I say or do, he does not believe me. But again, we absolutely love it. And I think when you talk to just about any tiny house person, you'll hear them say the same thing. Something else interesting about tiny house people, when you watch those wonderful shows on television and you sit there and dream of, can you do that? You'll notice that frequently they'll go back a few months later and visit the people that are living in the tiny house that they showed them a few months earlier. And you'll notice that almost every one of them planned very well, got it all done, and then changed things. So I'm going to give you a little advice. You will too. When you get into your tiny house, you're going to find ways that you're going to find that you can fix it better, have a little better storage solution. And in our almost 2 years, I have changed so many things. And one of my favorite things that I like to tell people about is the bathroom. Now, this sounds kind of funny because most people think, well, I'll just make a little tiny space for our bathroom. We don't really need much space there. But if you have family members that are watching television, that might be doing homework, or possibly even working from home, when the phone rings, the television's on, figure it out. You're in one big room, even if you have a loft. And I like to tell everyone, make your bathroom as big as you can and as comfortable as you can, because that's the only room in your tiny house that's separate in most cases, unless you have a spare bedroom, and a lot of people don't. And this way, when the phone rings and my husband is watching his favorite show that's blaring in the background, I can just say, hey, hang on a second, because I can't even hear who's calling me. And I run into the bathroom, close the door, and now I'm in a private, quiet space that I can conduct a phone call on. I even have a little pad and pencil in there in case I have to write something down. The interesting thing too about the bathroom is that I have a regular door. Now I know a lot of tiny houses have sliding doors to save on space. If and they aren't as soundproof as a closed door. So if you're able to design your home with a door that swings in either direction, the other thing that's very good about the door is you could hang something on the inside of the door if it was not a slider. That way you have a little more storage, like a shoe bag or a clothing towel rack, something like that. And I am going to mention something else about the towel rack while I'm at it. The bathroom, no matter what size, it's important that you have an exhaust fan and that you are able to hang your towels well so that they dry and you don't have a lot of moisture in the bathroom. So wherever you're able to put towel racks that have multiple rings so that you can hang 3 or 4 towels to dry well, that is a really good tip that I can give you. Now, I am going to go into several tips for you that I have accumulated over the years, and I've been in the process of writing a really good book that just covers every little thing that I can think of that can help you in your tiny house, and it's called Tiny House Experiences. And when you go on my website, which is tinyhouseadvisor.com, you can sign up for my newsletter and get a smaller version of the book free. And it's a smaller version, but it does have some of the most important tips. And the reason I'm not quite done with the book is I'm just have so much to put in it that I just keep adding things because I just know of so many things that can help you as someone that's going into a tiny space. The first thing that I will tell you, though, is to get yourself a nice journal. This can be any size small book that you can carry with you all the time, have nearby, and every time you're on YouTube or getting an email or just searching the internet and hearing something that catches your attention, mark it down in your journal so that you have a record of all these good ideas, because it's pretty hard to keep them all in your head. So the journal is real important to just record everything you hear that might be helpful for you in designing your own tiny house. Now you can see, I'm going to lean over. We have a small refrigerator. It is 5 feet tall by 2 feet wide, and it has the extra freezer. I like to talk about appliances in tiny homes. I really believe, this is me though, this may not be you, but when I watch the shows, I notice that lots of people feel that the need for a large stove, a big refrigerator, and so forth. And I suggest that check, like with the refrigerator, just use 2 shelves and see how you do, because you may not need that large refrigerator. I mean, we have loads of stuff in our freezer. We have fresh vegetables that take up a lot of room in the refrigerator itself. And we have plenty of room in our size refrigerator. So to me, it's a really good idea to practice before you move into your tiny house and see what you really need. People who think that they need a full size range, think about it. Some people just use the right front burner, and you may end up only needing a hot plate or a convection oven or what have you. But if you do feel the need to have a 4-burner stove, the apartment size appliances are absolutely wonderful, like the 21-inch stove with the 4 burners. Now, granted, you're not going to be using cooking a 21-pound turkey, but you can probably cook a 12 or 15-pound turkey. You can cook casseroles, cookies, and whatever you need, and not gobble up real important space. Practice on your counter. Cordon off or tape off a little section of your counter in your house and practice and see how much space do you really need to work on when you're preparing meals. And if you are somebody that needs more space, so you design around it. I mentioned the exhaust fan earlier. One of the things that I forgot to do in designing our house is to put an exhaust fan in the kitchen. And as you can see behind me, the cabinets are in, there's a little shelf up there, and there really is no space for an exhaust fan. I haven't given up, I'm working on it, but exhaust fans are pretty important when you're doing what we do, cooking fish and onions and peppers that make the whole place smell up. And let's face it, that happens even in a large home. So an exhaust fan is something that is real important to consider. Now, these tips I'm going to give you today are not in any special order of importance. They're just things that I know that could possibly help you. And like I said, I have a lot of these listed in my book, along with many, many others. I chose to have closed shelving like you see right behind my head. But a lot of people are like open shelving. And that's a choice to make. And you've got to be pretty clever and careful so as not to look cluttered. And that's why I ended up choosing closed cabinets so I could put all my goodies in the back and nobody would see anything. Another thing on a tiny house, every tiny bit, micro quarter of an inch counts. So if you're not, let's say you have CDs or DVDs, if you keep them in those plastic, I think they call them jewel cases, if you had 3 of them, they take up, just 3 take up quite a bit of room. If you were to put those CDs and DVDs into an envelope, and if 30 of them in one of those little envelopes takes up the same space as 3 in a jewel box. So again, there you are, saving space. Now, some people have been able to record, go on different, I'm not very technical, I'm sure you can figure that out, but they found ways to have everything streaming and recording and all that, so they don't don't need a lot of space, they don't need a lot of books because they're using the Kindle, things like that. But going back to books and bookcases, measure your books. If you feel the need to keep books, you're going to find that even a hardback book is not even 8 inches deep from front to back. So if you bring in a ready-built bookcase, or you are using or building one, don't think that you need a 10 or 12-inch bookcase because it's just gobbling up floor space. And a bookcase 7 to 8 inches deep is more than enough. And a bookcase is a very valuable commodity in your tiny house because you can put your CDs, DVDs. I have my basket of vitamins on my bookcase. It fits the depth of my bookcase, and I can just pull it off in the morning or at night and bring it over to my counter, take what I need, put it back, and the basket looks attractive and it hides everything. And baskets in themselves are very nice things to have in a tiny house. Another thing, a lot of tiny houses, people think, where do they put their bikes and their rakes and everything like that? A lot of people don't realize this, but some people are buying those Rubbermaid collapsible storage sheds, and they can put their, like I said, their bikes, sporting equipment, garden tools and things like that in it. And when they have to move the tiny house, they can collapse this shed, pop it in the back of the truck with their bikes and things, and prop it back up again wherever they go. So it isn't necessary to have to figure out where you're going to put some of that stuff in your tiny house. Now, another thing, lots of people have hobbies, and they're into sports, and they go skiing, and canoeing, and maybe you're a musician and you have musical instruments. You can consider using these things as wall art. You can hang the fishing poles on the wall. Skis can be hung. The guitar or banjo can be hung on the wall. And again, it's like wall art, and you're able to have really great space. Another thing I see a lot, tiny homes have beautiful doors. Have you seen these gorgeous doors that people have designed for their tiny house? These big, beautiful, solid wooden doors. Some of them, which is kind of a good idea, have a little peephole so you can see who's on the other side. I had one of those doors when we first moved into our tiny house, and I kept watching all over on salvage and whatnot to find one with a window, because that corner of my house was dark. And I did finally find one with a half window. And I like the half window because it also goes up and down. But my big suggestion, since wall space is also your vertical storage, instead of having that extra window, windows are nice because it makes everything look more spacious and open and light and bright. But if you choose a door that has either a half window or a full window, it gives you a lot more light coming in, and you're not taking up valuable vertical storage space that you could have used that spot to put a, where you have another window in the house to put a bookcase or something like that. When you're designing closets, measure your hangers and realize that your closet does not need to be really deep. It just needs to be deep enough for your hangers to hang, and also determine how high the clothes are that you're using. If you're a lady and you wear dresses, it's real easy just to fold the dresses in half and not need to hang them very high in the closet. That way, your closet can either be short at the top or short at the bottom and have shelving either above it or below it. And you can use multiple hangers. There's all kinds of ways to, provide more storage space for yourself in your closet. And really think about it. Your grandparents and your parents lived in 900 square feet. They had 2-bedroom homes and 3 or 4 children and put all the kids in one bedroom. They had little tiny closets because women back then had 3 pairs of shoes, one for like sneakers, one for flats, and one black pair of heels that went with everything else. So they did very well with all those children and one bathroom. And nowadays people, are thinking that they need way more space. And this is where the tiny house has come in. People are just starting to realize they don't need all that space. They can really be happy in smaller space. Now, my microwave, I wish let me get this for you. You got to see this. Look at this. You know what this is? This is one of those covers that you put over your food so it doesn't splatter if you're using a microwave, if you have one. Well, we use our microwave as a bread box. So in here, we can put bread, we can put cookies, crackers, whatever, little stuff. And when we want any of it, we pull it out like a bowl and take what we need. And if we do want to put it over the spaghetti when it's cooking so it doesn't splatter, we still have this. This is just a really good tip that can help you. If you're going to have Wi-Fi in your tiny house, and especially if you're off-grid, you'll want to do some huge research and find various towers and all kinds of things that you can do to beef up your reception for Wi-Fi, because in most cases, Wi-Fis are very important. In your bathroom, in your shower, that's a place that if you can find yourself a nice, tall, slim hamper with holes in it, because you want something that will give you, what do I call it? uh, Airflow. So you won't have your clothes getting damp or something like that in there. Whenever you go to take a shower, it's just easy. Just pull the hamper out, put it aside, take your shower, and when you're done, you can just put the hamper back in so that the hamper isn't taking up valuable floor space. If you're choosing a couch for a tiny house or a settee, sofa, whatever you're going to call it, when you're visiting tiny houses, boats, some of the tiny house shows, sit on every couch you can and notice that just a plain wood box that has storage underneath is absolutely wonderful for storage, or a big drawer that opens. But make sure that you design your couch so it has big, fluffy cushion on it, so it's comfortable to sit on, because frequently in tiny houses, people use their sofa to sit on and watch TV. It's real important that it's comfortable. Speaking of extra seating, if you ever need it, I love director's chairs. Those are the ones with the canvas seat and the canvas back. They collapse if you have to put them over in a corner. But if you have company, they're real easy to open up. You can put them outside when you have company. They're really a wonderful thing to have in a tiny house, as opposed to big chairs that take up a lot of space. Another thing that's very valuable in tiny houses is your stackable tables are very nice to have, because you can move them around, put a fan on one. My husband props his feet up on his. You can use it as like a little coffee table, whatever you need. And if they're sturdy enough, they can be used for extra seating. So if you can have them built special, stacking tables they're called, they're a very nice thing to have in your tiny house. I have a list here, because there's so many things. Having a high faucet. You notice in the back here, let's see if I can move my finger, see my faucet? It's tiny, I mean, it's tall. And I have a sprayer. Those are really important in a tiny house, because you can, I only have a small single sink, and it's plenty big. And I keep my strainer down in the sink. And when I'm doing a big pan, it's real easy to clean the big pan with the sprayer if necessary, or the tall faucet. And there's once in a while, sometimes I don't feel like getting into the shower to wash my hair. And I find that that high faucet is really nice, because most bathroom faucets are very low. But if you have the opportunity to put in a tall faucet in your bathroom sink, in your bathroom, it is also a very good idea. Towels. I learned this when we lived aboard the boat. And that was, again, the moisture is a real problem on boats, and just hanging a big fluffy towel in the bathroom on the boat, it would take a long time for it to dry. And if I had to go to laundromats, I was paying a lot of money to dry the towels and things like that. So I learned a big secret, and that is to buy, if you're buying new ones, just go to the store and check them out and buy those. They're a little cheaper, they're a little smaller, and when you fold them, besides them drying faster, when you fold them, they take way less room. One of those big fluffy towels can take up the room of 3 towels in a smaller, thinner size. So that is a really good idea. When you're storing things, square containers are a must. Round containers take up a lot of extra space, wasted space. So square containers are the way to go. Find the ones that stack inside of each other when you're storing them and not using them, or when they are full of food, that they can be stacked right on top of each other so they take up less room. Cookware. If you can, find stackable cookware. Now, I know lots of people love to hang their pots and pans off of a rack, but again, I just find it to make look more, have more clutter in your space by hanging lots of stuff on the walls and having those pot racks. So my personal opinion, I like to just have them where I can hide them away. And even if you put them on an open shelf, at least they're stacked nicely on top of each other, inside of each other, and they look a lot better. So that can help you. And the best place to find really good stackables is, and they're expensive, is the waterless cookware that you see at RV shows and boat shows. They're expensive, but they last forever. I still have mine that I've had since I got married, and they take up less heat. They don't heat up your space because things cook faster and you cook on very low heat. So they're a really good thing to have. Now I'm going to look at my list again and see if I have anything else on here that I think might be of help to you. Oh, wall sconces are really good for your lights. They take up less space, like you don't have to take up space on a little end table or something. But if you're going to get wall sconces, try to get the ones that swivel so you can direct them. Like if you're in bed and you have your light and you want to have it shine in a certain spot, you can just swivel them, and they're really good. I find the need to have a desk in my tiny house. And if you go on my website, the house is still the same. You can look at my whole layout and everything. But I did change out my desk. I had a 24-inch wide drop leaf little IKEA, and it was big enough. And I can highly recommend, even if you find an antique one or whatever, a secretary. A secretary has little cubbies. The drop leaf comes down, giving you a lot of room. And if you have a big mess in your desk and you have company, you can just close the lid and nobody sees it. And most of them have drawers underneath. And so if you're out shopping for furniture for your tiny house, that's the way to go. And when I found mine at a yard sale, it was 6 inches longer. It was 30 inches wide. And fortunately, all I had to do was slide my couch down a little, and I was able to fit this into my space. I think that I've given you most of the top tips that I could think of. But like I said, when you get a chance to get my book, you'll have way more tips, because frankly, every day I think of something new and find a new way. But I'm going to go back to our host of this, and I think she has a few questions she wants to ask me if we have any time left. Are you there?
I'm here so much. That was really great. You gave a whole lot of wonderful tips and information that really, I think, allow people to understand what you've written about, what you've experienced, and really give a perspective on how you can think about downsizing in a much more efficient manner. So that's really been very helpful, and I'm sure that our participants are going to really enjoy that information. I actually don't have any questions. You covered it so well that I think we can just sort of end there if you're good with that. We really appreciate you participating, and look forward to seeing kind of what this information can provide for everyone that attends the summit.
And I got to tell you, I'm going to watch every one of those, because I'm sure that everyone else that's going to be on there has awesome ideas that I'm going to write in my journal to add to blog or newsletter, so that my big thing is I'm always on the lookout for nuggets of new ideas and things that can help my clients and help everyone, again, in whatever space they choose.
Thank you so much. And I think we're really excited to have all the participation that we're getting from this. And we're really excited to see what this first ever event's going to yield. So thanks so much for your participation, Pat. And we look forward to connecting with you very soon.
And thank you so much for having me. It is a real honor and a thrill. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.